Greetings. I'm re-recording a talk that I recently gave at the AEESP Converging COVID-19 webinar on environment, health, equity. In this talk, I will be addressing sociodemographic and equity issues during the COVID-19 pandemic with specific applications to environmental engineering. Research has shown that COVID-19 has had a disproportionate effect on racial and ethnic minority groups with higher rates of death in African American, Native American, and Latinx communities as compared to that in white communities. This is thought to be due to a variety of reasons, including chronic medical conditions, poor access to health care, along with living and working conditions that predispose them to worse outcomes. For example, the wealth of white households is 10 times that of black households. 30% of whites have had the privilege of working from home during the COVID-19 pandemic. On the contrary, only 20% of blacks have had the same privilege. COVID-19 has disproportionately affected first-generation college students as compared to students with college-educated parents. As shown here, minority seniors were much more likely to have changed or canceled their plans to attend college compared to white high school students. Internet connectivity is poorer for first-generation, minority, and rural students than for others. As many of us are aware, international students have been greatly affected by COVID-19. Travel restrictions have prevented many from returning or arriving in the U.S. Their mental health may be affected by their concerns for their family's health and well-being in their home countries. Visa requirements or delays mean that many are forced to remain at home, and this results in a sense of isolation from their peers. They struggle with having to overcome time differences. Many suffer due to challenges due to poor internet. And as mentioned previously, this sense of isolation, which is affecting many of our students, is affecting our international students also. About a year and a half ago, I agreed to revamp our environmental engineering lab class to meet the new ABET student outcomes and revised environmental engineering program criteria. When I did so, I had no clue that I would be attempting to do this during a pandemic. The goal of the revised course was to provide students with hands-on activities that would allow them to design and conduct experiments and to analyze the data generated to make sound engineering judgments and recommendations. As the decision was made to move almost all of our fall semester classes online, the activities needed to be independent of location and could be conducted remotely. My goal was to allow the students to use inexpensive and readily available kits to conduct their experiments, and thus, over the summer, I developed 6 labs and 4 assignments that would accomplish these goals. The students were informed of which kits to purchase, and they purchased their own kits, which are readily and commercially available at pool and pet stores or can be ordered online. International students living overseas had no problems purchasing the kits. However, had they encountered problems, the department would have shipped the kits to them. The lab, while I think has been generally successful, does have its challenges. While I lecture synchronously, the students are allowed to do labs asynchronously. This results in a disconnect and a lot of email traffic. The students were assigned to teams and need to compile data, but time differences and the inability to meet in person has resulted in challenges for some. One of the major successes was this past week when students were required to measure phosphate, nitrate, ammonia, and nitrite in several water bodies. The students had to go outside to accomplish this, and many students were simply thrilled to actually be outside accomplishing something, and many just enjoyed even being back on campus to do this. I've used numerous techniques to overcome many of the issues previously mentioned. For example, I have found that I need to be flexible with assignment due dates and office hours. Many of our students are overseas. They may be 12 or more hours out of sync with us. So what's convenient for me as far as office hours is not necessarily convenient for them. We need to accommodate that. I record my lectures and I post them on YouTube for later viewing, which means that they don't have to access the course management system to view these lectures. It was also interesting in reflections that I asked students to do recently. One of the students noted that he actually really liked seeing the videos on YouTube because it gave him a sense that he wasn't just spending all his time viewing lectures, he was actually doing something on YouTube. I don't require students to have their video cameras on. I believe that that's an issue of privacy. I respect that privacy, so I don't request or demand that they have their videos on. And in both of my courses, I've chosen textbooks that are available through the university library system so that students don't have the additional cost of textbooks. While there are challenges regarding teamwork, I do believe that teamwork does provide students with opportunities to interact with their peers. And I believe that this is extremely important in this time. On the other hand, there are challenges regarding teamwork, especially for those overseas and those with poor internet connections. In order to help students with time management and remembering deadlines, I've sent out a weekly message to all of my students. I also provide reminders at the start and end of lecture to help ensure that all students have the needed information regarding due dates, assignments, upcoming lectures, etc. I've used a class blog for more informal communication. This allows me to consolidate all of the weekly messages in one location. It also allows me to upload photos and just provide additional information, as I've shown here, to my students. In the spring, after we went online, I started giving my students participation questions each week to replace the in-class activities and minute papers. These participation questions are not focused on content. Instead, they're focused on mental health and their well-being. I've continued this practice throughout this semester in both of my courses. It allows me to obtain feedback throughout the semester and creates a conduit for maintaining connections with my students. And I've provided them, when I communicate with these participation questions, I've tried to maintain them conversational, and I've also engaged with them and been honest in terms of my own challenges with regard to the COVID pandemic. And lastly, students aren't the only ones feeling a sense of isolation. Faculty suffer from this too, and I think it's important for us to recognize that. During the summer, a group of us connected initially on Twitter and then through an AEESP webinar, and we've been sharing course material and experiences. In the 30+ years of teaching, this is the first time I have ever seen this level of collaboration amongst faculty across universities And I believe that this is the future, and this is the way that we can all lift each other up so that we all succeed. We have material posted on a Google Drive. We have in a Slack work group. We've welcomed anyone who wishes to participate in this endeavor and this important space to enter and to participate and collaborate with us. If you're interested, contact me. I'm happy to share the information that I've generated, the links that we've all provided to one another, so that we can all succeed, that we lift up, as I mentioned, each other, but we lift up our students. Together, we'll get through this pandemic. So thank you. These are a few photos from my students. They gave me permission to post them, and just a few references here related to issues of equity and inequity in academia. Thank you.